So I'm a unique individual on all accounts. Um, I'll give you the short version. When I was a med student, I did psychiatry. And I remember coming out of that rotation and I was like, this is madness. This whole thing is madness. Everything I saw just seemed mad. And I don't mean that as a joke, meaning psychiatry associated with madness. I literally meant like my brain couldn't follow the medicine. I think, I don't know what it was, but it was kind of like, I think I was too distracted by the symptomatology of the patients. And I just couldn't get it together in terms of the treatments and the approach to treating mental disorders. OB-GYN was crazy. It was absolute lunacy, in my opinion, because it was like all of the woman care stuff. And I did my OB rotation at Georgetown and some of the Georgetown satellite hospitals. And I can remember honestly feeling like as a male, I just felt so out of the loop. And especially like I can remember rounding, excuse me, on certain rotations. I remember one morning I was rounding on my patient. And when I got to the door, there was a big sign on the door. And the door said, "No male medical students allowed." And that sign was from the patient. Okay. Mm-hmm. Now I had to now present to my residents, but I couldn't present because I wasn't allowed in the room. Right. And I think those kind of experiences to me, I was just like, oh my God, like I don't know what to do with this OB business. And that just didn't sit right with me. Plus, I'll be 100% true. Like I thought a lot of the OB residents, they were kind of just angry, upset, and mean all the time. And just like, man, this place it's just too tight in here, man. And it's just too tight in here. So I didn't like OB. Internal medicine, I thought the internal medicine doctors were brilliant. You know, if you can wear a bow tie to work every day and still see patients, you know you got to be smart, right? But the rounding was like killing me. You know, if I'm rounding, meaning if we're going around discussing the care of the patients for the day for longer than 2 hours, that's when my knees start to get weak. And that's when I start thinking about lunch and what I'm going to do afterward. And you know how it is, right? It's like if you're standing up for too long and you hear the talking too long, that's all of a sudden when you're kind of like, you know, I feel pain in my back, right? And then the next thing you know, your back is killing you and you can't get your mind off of the back pain, right? Surgery was cool. I liked it. But I had an issue, and my wife will tell you that I don't take direction too well. And I think that when they started screaming at me and, you know, calling me names, you know, and my other med students would be like, no, just let it dust off, man. Don't worry about it. I would be there, you know, like when the resident would call me names and call me stupid and, you know, like, you know, slap me in the back of my head. And, you know, the other med students would be like, don't worry about it, man. We all get it. I would just be like, ooh, he called me dumb. I just couldn't function in that environment. Pediatrics. Okay. Pediatrics was madness, right? Because the kids can't talk. And when the kids couldn't talk, I didn't know how to deal with that. And also there was something interesting about peds where the separation of the mother from the child was very traumatic for me. If you had to do a procedure and you wanted the mother to separate, oftentimes that was a lot of drama. And that had me as a med student kind of like standing on the wall like this, like trying to pretend like I wanted to disappear because that mother separation was very difficult for me. So peds, I didn't do too well mentally in the peds too. I'm literally running down my life for you guys as realistically as possible, so you understand, those of you out there who are like me, you understand that you're not crazy, because I'm not completely crazy, right? And here I am. Let me see. So I did surgery, peds, OB, internal medicine, psych. You ask, well, how did I get to radiology, right? So obviously nothing was fitting, and I kept going through all these rotations, and I'd be like, man, I mean, that was cool, but I don't know if I want to do that. OBs are crazy and angry. I don't want that. So my wife's an OB, by the way. That's how life comes around, right? You hate the rotation, and then you end up marrying an OB. Remember, I was in Georgetown, and I was coming back to my locker, and I ran into a medical student she's about 2 years behind me. And she asked me, she was like, hey, you're like about to be the big third year, or you are the big third year now, what are you thinking of doing? And I was like, I have no idea. And I ran down exactly what I just did with you, with her, except in 30 seconds. I was just like, everybody's crazy, everybody's mad, I can't do it. And she was like, you should do radiology. She was like, I'm doing radiology because I love the idea of being independent and kind of like just me and the study. And I was like, I never even thought of that. Because in my school, radiology was not a guaranteed rotation. Everybody didn't get it. Like sitting there, and I was like, I didn't even think of that. And the next thing you know, I signed up for a radiology rotation, an elective. And that's when I realized, I was like, I think this is what I really want to do. Because at that time, it was like, you're reading studies, it's you and the computer, right? It's not too much of a team sport like medicine and surgery and OB of all those were. And I'm an only child. And I can tell you right now, I have a classic only child mentality, which is I think on my own. I joke with myself. I carry on conversations with myself. I argue with myself. I speak in different voices, right? So, I can remember a medical student and being on call alone and being in the call room, and I would have conversations with myself in an English and a British accent. So, like I would say things like, all right, well, maybe what we need to do is give potassium because, it seems like the electrolytes would all blah, blah, blah. And then I would respond to myself, and I'd pretend like I was an attending, and I'd be like, well, that doesn't sound like it's the greatest idea. Maybe what you want to think about is maybe instead of doing the potassium, and I'd be in the call room by myself, right? Like, that's me. Like, that's how I've been since I was a kid. I'm still this way as a grown man. My wife has big issues with it, but it's too late. It's not something that's fixable. And so in radiology, I like the idea of it's me and the computer. So if I want to give the computer a voice, I give the computer whatever voice I want to give it, right? But then as I went through my training in radiology, I realized that I didn't want to be a general radiologist. I wanted to be neuro. So I specialized in neuro. And then after that, then I liked interventional. So I started doing interventional. So that's how I kind of like have this whole general neuro interventional. And oh, by the way, I also do mammo. So I do full mammography, diagnostic, all of that too.